I wanted to quickly talk about today is the key prices and levels indicator. It's available exclusively to the paid members of the Jungle Discord. It's something that I created to save me some time every morning of drawing the key levels and prices that could be reference points to where the price is going or resistance levels and so on. Just wanted to give a brief description because this indicator does cover a lot of different points. Hopefully this will be an intro to it that answers any questions anybody using it might have. I have this indicator right now on screen. If you don't have access to it, send me a DM with your TradingView username so I can give you access. What this indicator does, and I'll just zoom in here, it highlights key levels that are relevant for the New York trading sessions as well as the pre-market trading session. It shows you the Asia high and low, the London high and low as well. It shows you the midnight open. It shows the PM high and low from the previous day, as well as the previous day low and the high. Each one of those levels represented by a line. Asia, London, and high. Asia and London ranges are also highlighted in the box, and I'll show you in settings how you can turn it off if you don't want to see it. And every level also has a label, and if you hover your mouse over that label, will show the exact price, as well as the key levels. I also try to highlight the price of on the price bar to the right. If you have situations where multiple price levels are exactly at the same point, like for example, previous day high and PM high match the same value, rather than drawing two labels that overlap, it'll combine them into one label. Once the New York session opens, it shows you the 8:30 open price and the line representing it. It shows the 9:53 open price. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's essentially considered one of the root candles. Mark highlighted, but there's actually a whole explanation behind what root candles are. It's a very complicated and heady doc to read. And 9:53 open is one of those candles that often acts as a resistance or support point from which the price will move higher or lower depending on the direction. It's an important one to note. Have a little purple box here. This purple box represents is the first 1 minute FVG after 9:30 open. And the nice thing about it, it'll be shown on all time frames. I'm on a 5-minute time frame, so even though it's a 1 minute FVG, it still shows up in the box. If I switch to 1 minute, its position, so this is the FVG, will become more apparent, but it keeps it on a higher time frames like 2 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, and so on. Could still use it as reference. That FVG can often indicate direction of price. If it's respected and it's a bullish FVG, chances are price is going to go up. Or if it's inversed, it can also be an indicator of where the price is going, as was the case here. Another important level to be aware of. Until as we get to lunchtime, you also will start to see it start tracking the lunch highs and lows as the time progresses, as the lunch high and low is also relevant price range for the PM session. And those, because lunch is a dynamic target, those will get updated as new highs and lows are formed during the lunch time frame that occurs until it stops. And then obviously they no longer change. Another relevant level that I've captured are actually the deviations of the Asia range. You have the 0.5, 2, 2.5, 4, and 4.5. So those are the key deviations. I don't try to cover all the deviations because I'm trying to keep the lines to a minimum, but those deviations tend to be the most important, especially the 2 and 2.5, as during most New York sessions, the price will at least reach out to 2 or 2.5 area before reversing. And when it does reverse, it can often go to the opposite side of 2 or 2.5 levels. Those are very handy to have on your chart, which is one of the reasons that I've highlighted them here. Now, in terms of the settings, there's quite a few, and I try to make this indicator as flexible as possible so you can choose what you want to see. You can determine, for example, for Asia highs and lows, whether you want to show them, what color to be indicated, what label to use, and you can even hide the label, and whether to highlight the price and whether to highlight the range. And pretty much the same settings are available for the London session as well as the PM session. and a lunch session. In all cases, you can choose what label to use to indicate them and whether to highlight price on the right-hand side right here, and whether you even want to have the label shown, and obviously what colors you want to represent the session. Then you have the indicator of York Open, which is 8:30, 9:53 open, and the midnight open, whether or not you want to show them on chart, whether you want to see the previous day, high and low, and then whether you want to show the Asia deviations, and then the settings relating to the 930 FEG, whether to draw it. And you also have an option to say that I don't necessarily care about the 1 minute, although from what I've seen, the 1 minute is the most reliable. You can uncheck that box and it'll show you the first FEG based on the time frame that you happen to be on, which could be 30-second, could be 5 minute, could be 15 minute, and so on. You can control all of those settings right here. That's kind of a very quick overview of what the indicator is designed to show. Another bit that I wanted to mention is that this indicator is primarily designed for NQ, although you could use it for ES and I suppose any index or stock if you were so inclined, but it's really more designed for indices. It works on all time frames from 30-second till 1 hour. Because once you go to a higher time frame, like 4 hour and above, a lot of these levels are no longer as relevant. Will turn off pretty much all the values except the midnight open if you go to a time frame that is higher than 1 hour. That is one constraint for this particular indicator. One thing that's worth noting is that it can work during Asia and London. Most of the relevant values really appear after London close. It'll track the Asia highs and lows and London highs as they're being formed during that period. But realistically, it's best to use after London closes, as at that point you have sufficient levels to help you make any meaningful decisions based on those levels. And after New York Open, this is where this indicator becomes most relevant because you have pretty much all the levels that you would potentially be interested available on screen. That's about it as far as this indicator goes. It's fairly self-explanatory. Question of how do I use it primarily? I really mostly use it as targets of where the price might be going and as a qualifier for whether or not I want to enter a trade in a certain direction. For example, if I'm in a trade and we're getting close to Asia 2 deviation, I may want to raise my TP to that level because the price is very likely to reach it. If we're very close to 953, I may not want to enter a trade until I see what is the reaction at 953, or I may even want to put in, let's say, if we were here, well, this is a little bit far, but if we're somewhere here and I was contemplating a long, I may want to wait until 953 is hit before entering that long because that might be a possible draw or possible bounce point from a price. Purple box, which is the 1 minute, the first 1 minute FEG, that is kind of a key level to watch to see what happens, whether it gets broken or whether it's used as resistance. If we're looking at this price action, we use it as support around this area and then we start moving higher. So there was, let's say, a 30-second setup somewhere around here. I would use that as a indicator. Very likely we're going to continue moving up because now we used that 1 minute FEG as support. That's another indication of bias that we're moving higher, and that gives me greater confidence to enter. So that's essentially the levels. Lunch levels are very interesting because not every day, but in many cases, the price will go from lunch low to lunch high and vice versa. And that may be a good indication of a trade to say we're rejecting lunch highs or we started moving lower. I may leave a runner to lunch low to see if we actually get to that point. And oftentimes the lunch range can be over 100 points. So that's a pretty good trade even on a micro runner. There's many other ways to use it. Again, it's what are the relevance of the various levels and qualifying your trades using them. Like it won't tell you whether to take a trade or not, except maybe 953 bounce or a rejection. It gives you potential targets or potential confirmation that you're on the right side of the market. Thank you for joining. Hopefully you find it informative.